Good morning, everybody. First of all, thanks to all of you for being here today. Thanks to all of you who are also following the session via online. Welcome to EU for Business Connecting Companies Biofood Consortium Conference. My name is Carmen Fernandez. I am project manager at the Chamber of Commerce of Seville in Spain. And we have been managing the Biofood Consortium along with Shaolei Chamber of Commerce, thanks to whom we are here today in Vilnius with this conference, and along with the Republic of Armenia and Republic of Moldova Chamber of Commerce. I want to say that for the whole consortium, it had been such a pleasure to be involved within the EU for Business initiative, supporting Eurochambers with the development and management of the project. These initiatives, where cooperation and support among European Union member states and our neighbors from the Eastern partner countries are a priority, should keep being matter of great importance in the future. This project, even with the given circumstances with the COVID crisis and the war in Ukraine, has led into more than 200 business support organizations and SMEs benefited from both the European Union countries and the Eastern countries. We do believe in this cooperation and would like to keep being involved in the future. For example, at the Chamber of Commerce of Seville, related with the biofood sector, we are always supporting and looking for synergies with other initiatives where we are also involved, such as the promotion of the Mediterranean diet, which is in somehow related to organic and sustainable production and ways of consumption. Once again, thanks to our colleagues from Shaolei Chamber of Commerce who have been organizing this event here in Vilnius. Thanks to Vilnius Town Hall and AgriFood Forum organizers for giving us the opportunity to hold our conference here today. Now, I want to give the floor to Gerald Odas, team leader for Economic Development Sector DG NEAR. Can you hear me, Gerald?
Yes, I can hear you very well, Carmen. Thank you.
So, Gerald, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Carmen. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's a real pleasure for me to attend this conference on the bioorganic food organized by Eurochambre. And I'm really sorry that I could not make it to Vilnius today to be with you. If you allow me, I would like to first thank Eurochambre for organizing this very important event together with the Chamber of Commerce of Sevilla and the Chamber of Commerce of Shaolei. I hope I pronounced it well. I'm sorry if I mispronounced the name of the city. But also to thank Eurochambre for the excellent collaboration we've had over the past 10 years trying to support economic integration between Europe and its Eastern partners. And trying to build bridges between economic operators based in Europe and based in the Eastern Partnership region. Since we started the Connecting Companies project in 2020, I think the project has largely contributed to connecting business support organizations and SMEs from the EU with their counterparts based in Moldova, Ukraine, Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan. I'm sure that Laura Velasco from Eurochambre will later present the project in more details, but I think the achievement that we've done in the last couple of years is truly amazing. And again, I would very much like to thank Eurochambre, but also thank all the business support organizations, the Chamber of Commerce, and the SMEs involved for making the project such a success so far. So the subject of the conference today is, of course, of utter relevance when we consider the major challenges affecting the agricultural sector on the one hand, but also food supply across the world on the other. And in the last years, as you said, Carmen, we've been facing a lot of challenges when it comes to COVID-19. We've also seen a succession of natural disasters like droughts, wildfires, inundations. And now we are facing with the horrendous war that Russia is waging against Ukraine. And all these, crises have largely destabilized the agricultural markets in the region, and of course, even more so around the world. And I think these challenges call for at least two responses. The first one has to do with the need to really rethink and adapt our agricultural sector and our food industry to make them more resilient first, but also more sustainable and fairer. And on the other side, I think it would be very important to continue working to improve the competitiveness and the productivity, but also the quality of the agricultural sector, both in Europe and in the Eastern Partnership region, but also to continue to improve access to markets, to better respond to market needs, but also to consumers' preferences for quality products and organic products in particular. On the first point, when it comes to rethink and adapt our agricultural sector and agricultural policy, I think my colleague Catarina will come later on to present the renewed common agricultural policy that the European Union has adopted recently. So I will not discuss this, and I will let her present that new policy to you. But I think on the second point, when it comes to really, supporting organic farming, improving productivity, facilitating compliance with European sanitary and phytosanitary standards or sustainability standards, but also when it comes to improving access to market, I would like to say a few words on that, if you allow me. And maybe I would like to maybe highlight a few of the programs and projects that we have in the region, beside, of course, the EU for Business Connecting Companies. And maybe start with one of our flagship projects in Georgia called NPAD that maybe some of you know, which NPAD has been around for nearly 10 years already, and it has mobilized more than 200 million euros, excuse me, to support organic farming in Georgia, but also to support the modernization of irrigation systems, to support the diversification of production, and to help Georgian farmers meet the European sanitary and phytosanitary standards. So this is one example of how the European Union is providing expertise and encouraging the transfer of knowledge and know-how in support of better production and more resilient agriculture. But of course, expertise is not enough, as you know, and money is often key to making all these nice commitments a reality. And on that, we have a number of programs, a number of access to finance programs ongoing in the region. I can mention the Fruit Garden program in Moldova, which is one of our key projects implemented and supported by the European Investment Bank, which over the last 5 years has provided access to finance to small-scale farmers in Moldova, but which has also helped farmers to acquire equipment to meet EU quality and sanitary standards to be able to export to the European single market. We have a similar program called SME Competitiveness, which is implemented by the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, and that the European Union is co-financing, and which also allows farmers to acquire all the equipments they require to actually export to the EU and meet our sanitary standards. Beside expertise and money, there's also the issue of regulations and in terms of regulatory approximation and strengthening market surveillance systems. We've been super active in the past years, notably following the conclusion of the deep and comprehensive free trade agreements with Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia. So market surveillance has really been one of our key focus. Trying to first support these countries in approximating and their regulatory, how can I say, corpus, when it comes to market surveillance, but also to provide equipment and training to market surveillance institutions to help them, performing all the testings and the certification required. So that's also one of the key strands of our cooperation with the region in the past years. And then there's also a very important matter I've mentioned earlier. It's the issue of making sure that we have a fluid market access between Europe and the countries in the region. And on that, I think we realized that one of the main constraints that farmers or the food industry was facing is the issue of knowing exactly what are the requirements that are necessary to meet when you want to export to the European single market, or also that you need to meet to export to the neighboring countries. If you're a Moldovan producer, how do you export to Ukraine or to Georgia? And to try and solve this issue, we've put together a digital platform called the Eastern Partnership Trade Help Desk. That has been put together by an organization called the International Trade Center. And I think probably some of you have already attended the training on how to use this digital platform, but be informed that with Eurochambre, we will soon organize an export academy. I think it's scheduled for next year, where we will, of course, reintroduce again to you the Eastern Partnership Trade Help Desk. It's a super useful and efficient tool to access all the information you need to know to export, either to the EU or to the regions, as I said. Last but not least, I think I should mention that what the EU is also doing in support of Ukraine to avoid a global food crisis by supporting what we call the solidarity lanes. I don't know if this was discussed earlier today, but the solidarity lanes are basically, trying to offer alternative routes to the Black Sea for Ukraine to be able to export its grains and all the food products that it previously used to export, and to avoid basically famines and lack of access to staple food for many countries, especially in Africa. So the president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, a couple of days ago has pledged 250 million to help Ukraine, but also Moldova, renovate its railways, the roads, and also modernize the customs procedures and the customs clearance procedures to speed up the export of all these very essential food items for the rest of the world. So in the middle of all these activities that we are rolling out to try and support resilient and productive agriculture, of course, the Connecting Companies project plays a central role by contributing to building bridges, as I said, between economic operators and business support organizations, in terms of exchanging information and best practice, but also in terms of creating opportunities for business partnership. And for that, again, I would like to thank Eurochambre and thank you, Carmen and other colleagues from Shaolai, for making all these exchange of possible and making this project a real success. And I thank you for giving me the floor. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Gerald, for your contributions. We are really happy to count on you here today. Now I want to give the floor to Alfredas Ionuska, Managing Director of the Chamber of Commerce of Shaolai. Alfredas, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
So the floor is yours.
Good morning. Good morning, dear participants of the conference, ladies and gentlemen. I'm proud to welcome you here in Lithuania for one more EU for Business Connecting Companies event. 3 Lithuanian chambers, Šiauliai, Vilnius and Kaunas, and of 5 are part of this project. This, thanks to Eurochamber's management, we have lifted our competences to a level of issuing call of proposals and monitoring projects. The team managed continue cooperation, fostering work within COVID and war in Ukraine. This proves that not only EU chambers, but also Eastern Partnership business support organizations are capable to offer best quality of services to our member companies. As member of European Economic Social Committee, you know that this committee in the European Union in Brussels is the voice of the organized civil society. As the member, I want to make the introduction to a few opinions. I representing chambers in this committee and participating in the employers group. The war in Ukraine changes a lot. We have adopted some resolutions and opinions. One of them is targeted changes of the European Neighborhood Instrument, specific provisions for the 2014-2020 cooperation program supported by the European Neighborhood Instrument, and the European Territorial Cooperation Goal following program implementation description. The ACC welcomes the fast action of the EU institutions and the needed flexibility in relation to running projects right after Russia's unprovoked and unjustified war against Ukraine. Fast action was the only way to stay in line with the EU values and principles. Considering the suspension of funding to authorities of the Russian Federation and Belarus, and the related suspension of cross-border cooperation with the Russian Federation and Belarus, the ACC advances the idea of doing everything possible for transferring funds initially intended to these cooperation programs for cooperation with Ukraine. Other opinion, European Agriculture Fund for Rural Development Ukraine. Russia's invasion of Ukraine is seriously hurting the European Union's agricultural and agri-food sector. This European Economic and Social Committee therefore endorses the new measures intended to provide additional aid proposed by the European Commission. The committee feels that these measures is absolutely necessary and calls on the European institutions to lose no time in adopting it. The war in Ukraine has revealed the geostrategic nature of the agri-food sector and the need to ensure the EU food security. It means the committee supports the strengthening of cooperation with Ukraine and Moldova as candidates EU membership. It also monitors the processes in Sectoral, Armenia, and Azerbaijan. We hear the voices of the civil society and different governmental voices in these countries. Once more, thanks you very much for joining the conference. I wish you fluent and fruitful work in person, participants here in Lithuania, Vilnius, and viewers online. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alfredas, for your words. I also want to take the opportunity again to thank you, the Chamber of Commerce of Šiauliai, for organizing this event here in Vilnius. I want also to give you special thanks on behalf of the Biofood Consortium. And now we will continue with the intervention of Laura Velasco, Senior Project Officer at Eurochambers. Please, Laura.
Thank you very much, Carmen. Good morning to everybody. My name is Laura Velasco, and I'm here with my colleagues representing Eurochamber. I am delighted to be here today, surrounded by so many partners connecting both online and here presentially, to see firsthand the incredible work that the Biofood Consortia has done in the framework of the EU for Business Connecting Company project. For those of you who don't know, the EU for Business Connecting Companies started in December 2019 with the financial support of the European Commission, in particular DG NEAR, with the aim of boosting sustainable economic development and supporting job creation in the Eastern Partnership countries. The project, which is organized on a sectoral basis, covers 5 strategic sectors, being those wine, biofood, creative industries, tourism, and textiles. We, as Eurochamber, manage the project in cooperation with 5 different consortia, 1 per project, per sector. Each consortium is composed of 4 national or regional chambers of commerce, half of them from the European Union and half of them from the Eastern Partnership region. And so I would like to thank the organizers today, CRU Chambers of Commerce, Industry and Craft, the official Chamber of Commerce, Industry and Shipping of Sevilla, the Chamber of Commerce and Industry of the Republic of Moldova, and the Chambers of Commerce and Industry of the Republic of Armenia for organizing today's conference. Today's event is the living proof that this project is not only working and generating results. But also it is necessary to increase the level of involvement and competitiveness of the SMEs in these 5 key sectors. Organic agriculture is practiced in 190 countries around the world. And in 2020, the global sales of organic and drinks reached 120.6 billion euros. This, including the importance of this sector, including with the financial or the important difficulties we are facing actually in the supply chain, is reinforcing the importance of reinforcing the finding trustworthy supply chains, such as the one that can be found in the Eastern Partnership region. This conference is a milestone for both the bio-organic food sector and the EU for Business Connecting Companies project as a whole, as it helps us to see the tangible results of the project. Special thanks to Daiva, to Carmen and Pablo for today's organization, and I'm looking forward for all the interventions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Laura, for your words and your contributions. Now we can move to the next session. I want to give the floor to Catarina, Policy Analyst at the European Commission's Directorate General for Agriculture and Rural Development, DG Agri. Catarina, can you hear us?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, sorry, Catarina.
Good afternoon. Yes, I can hear very well. Thank you.
Okay, she's going to intervene about the new Common Agricultural Policy for period 2023 and 2027. So please, Catarina, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for inviting me today to share with you what the new Common Agricultural Policy will do to support the resilience of the agricultural sector in the coming years, but also to support the what the CAP has been doing for years, which is to support the food security, but food security not just in the EU, but also the contribution of the EU farming to global food security. I would like to today to give you a little bit of an overview of where we come from for this new iteration of the CAP for 2023-2027, to share the principles, priority angles, the main building blocks, but also a little bit of a glimpse into what member states are proposing in for this new iteration of the CAP. And tell you where we stand right now and what will be the next steps. Having said that, maybe a little bit of a background. The rural areas in the European Union, they account for more than 340 million hectares. This is 83% of the total EU areas, which are rural areas, which indicates the importance of the policy of this EU policy. Agricultural land altogether accounts for almost half of it, so the EU farmers use some 160 million hectares of land for agriculture production. What we are talking about the 30% of EU population almost living in the rural areas. So 10 million farms and 20 million people who are employed in the agriculture in the EU. This year we are celebrating 60 years of the CAP. This policy proved to be able to adapt to different changing circumstances. It has also evolved to make to meet the changing budgetary economic circumstances, but also evolved to meet the much evolving needs of the citizen. over the last 10 years, and you can see the EU agriculture, with the support of the common agriculture policy, made already significant progress towards more sustainable future, and it did not impact the capacity of the policy to supply good quality food. This is reflected in the gross value added of the EU agricultural production, which has increased in the last 10 years. This is reflected in the extent of organic production in the EU and its steady increase over the years. And also to the fact that the EU organic food and drink market doubled in the size. What we see is that the pesticide sales decline, and we also see that the greenhouse gas emissions have decreased if we compare it to 1990, even though they have, one is to say that they have this decrease have flattened in recent years. So, but there are a lot of challenges. One of the challenges is that the farmers' income in the EU is still lagging behind the average, the income in the wages in the rest of the economy. Even though we saw the increase here, you can see the red point shows the share of this average wage at the level of the EU, and how it compares to the wages of, in the rest of the economy. Well, the EU needs to attract young and other farmers, since the sector is obviously undergoing structural changes in terms of the number of farms, in terms of specialization of the farms. But what we see that the number of these young farmers is declining over time, that the profession is aging. And at the same time, the number of the rural areas are facing the population. This is one of the challenges, another challenges facing the EU agriculture sector. At the level, at the same time, obviously, undoubtedly the climate change. Climate change is a great challenge for economies in the EU and globally, and for the food sector. Food sector being or agriculture being the first one that is impacted by the effects of the climate change. In 2021, the EU the Commission put forward a package of legislative proposals, the Fit for 55 package. And it showed that indeed a 55% cut of net emissions of the greenhouse gases by 2030 can be achieved responsibly. I'm talking about impact assessment underlying these proposals, of course, so that they can be achieved. This reduction can be achieved responsibly on the way to secure climate neutrality in 2050. All economic sectors should contribute, and in particular energy sector. But what is also evident is that the carbon sinks will have to play essential role in the transition towards this carbon neutrality. And in part, agriculture, in particular agriculture, forestry, land use sectors will make an important contribution. So there are opportunities here for the soy sector. As I mentioned, the climate change, the biodiversity losses, we see it as this is a great challenge, as they are already impacting agriculture. They already impact agriculture in the EU and also globally. 50% of the land, according to the latest data, the 50% of the EU land, which is in the EU, which is cultivated with crop dependent on pollinators, faces pollinator deficits. as also illustrated by this year's drought. They are costing almost 9 billion a year in economic damage, well, in the level of the whole economy, and of course impacting very much production of crops, not just globally, but also in the EU. These yields, as a result of the yields are stagnating or even decreasing. What we also see, decline in biodiversity on farmland, it has slowed down, but it has not, it did not hold. We have problems of water quality, soil erosion, ammonia emissions, and they remain a major issue, although this depends also on the member state. Thus, I'm coming to this new CAP. What does it intend to do? What to do to address these big challenges? This graph shows a little bit of a timing of the new policy. It was proposed in 2018. That is under the old commission or the previous commission. We are now in 2022. We are at the very important moment in the sense that we are now finalizing with member states what this new CAP will do, starting from 2023 online. This new iteration of the CAP, what maybe to add, as I said, it's a new one. We're not starting from the scratch, but we learned the lessons of the previous period. And these lessons of the previous period showed that CAP should be more effective, that its resources should be used more strategically, that it should be more targeted in terms of measures, in terms of funding, that there should be more ambition in implementing the change. What is important also here to add that it really underlines the lessons learned from the previous period, the importance to spread knowledge and to advise farmers. Needless to say, about what was highlighted by the previous speakers here today, and the subject also of this conference, what is the COVID crisis, and even more so the effects of the Russian invasion on Ukraine. They underscored the importance of food security, underscored the importance of keeping resilient food systems, and this is also one of the priorities, the focus of this new CAP. So what is essential? This new CAP, for those who know the previous iteration, it generally maintains the main instruments to address the economic, environmental, social challenges of the agricultural areas. As I mentioned, food security remains political priorities. But what is the important changes? The changes in the wider policy context. The new CAP, in line with the ambitions of the EU overarching strategy, the European Green Deal strategy, will contribute to increase sustainability of the food systems at all levels, from food production and processing and retail and consumption. So this is generally achieve the objectives which are promoted by, in particular, the Farm to Fork strategy and elements of the EU biodiversity strategy, and the CAP will be an important contributors to meeting these objectives. Sorry, I had a bit of a problem here, but Does how the new CAP is going to be organized? It is going to be organized along national strategic plans. So each member states will design a national CAP strategic plan, which will then combine all the funding for income support, for rural development, for market measures. When designing these strategies, so one strategy for every single country, the member states have to focus on 10 specific objectives for climate, biodiversity, food and health. So these specific objectives, which are organized along the 3 dimensions of sustainability. The CAP plans will be shaped along national circumstances and needs. They have to be based on evidence, on definition of the problems. There are some, well, there are a number of common elements. In reality, there's also a lot of flexibility for member states to design these policy tools to reduce administrative burdens, to fit best their own specific circumstances, their own specific problems. Then the CAP plan will be monitored through follow-up and through feedback, in particular on the basis of common indicators. What the CAP will have to contribute, as I mentioned, is to the ambition of the Green Deal strategy. In particular, these contributions in terms of the various targets which are set at the EU level, non-binding targets for these particular 6 topics, from reduction in the use of chemicals, increase in areas under organic farming, reduced sales of antimicrobials, lowering impact of nutrient losses, more areas for biodiversity, and finally the access to fast broadband internet. So maybe briefly, we are talking about that 28 strategies. I'm saying 28 for each member state, 1 per member state. In case of Belgium, there are 2 regional strategies. And these whole strategies are organized along the 10 specific objectives. In the design, member states had to start from the diagnosis of the problems along each specific objective, for example, for climate change, for example, for natural resources, for example, for the position of farmers in the value chain. They have to prioritize their needs, prioritize their needs, and then decide what they're going to follow through CAP, what they're going to follow through other tools, whether EU funding or whether this is EU funding or national tools, because CAP, well, the CAP cannot do everything, obviously, and there's also a question of subsidiarity and those competences which lie entirely with member states. Then they design intervention strategy, they set specific targets, and I will come back to this later, design the intervention, and of course may have to make sure that they have the appropriate financial backing for these interventions. Well, this shows a little bit, it's a glimpse to how the money under the CAP is distributed, indicating some of the instruments. What we have is dedicated for this 5-year period. Altogether, we are talking about some 260 billion euros to be spent under the CAP with the use of these instruments. What I would like to highlight is the role of stakeholders, the legislation, and then the Commission in its discussion with member states on this strategies of how to of strategies for the CAP for the new period. It underlines very much the partnership principle. So the involvement of all relevant stakeholders in the preparation of the CAP plans in the monitoring of the implementation. And this entails, for example, public authorities, competent public authorities in member states who are responsible for environment and climate. It entails involvement of regional, local authorities, but also economic, social partners, or civil society organizations. Passing to what is the angles, the priority angles of the CAP. One of the changes. Well, first of all, the CAP will continue to support the economic resilience of the sector, to support viable farm income through direct payments, as it has been in the past. But we have a novelty of this system is a stronger focus on the fairer distribution of this income support, on greater targeting towards small and medium-sized farms. And this is, for example, reflected through an obligation for member states to redistribute the money that they have for income support. So 10% of this money has to be redistributed towards smaller farmers. So in reality, it means that these smaller farmers receive a greater level of support compared to the average and compared to bigger farmers in a country. Then this is also reflected of who actually may claim direct payments. This is something that member states have to define as active farmer. Only active farmers can receive the support. Member states then, how they do it, they determine this by drawing a list of economic activities that qualify entities as being considered and active farmers. This has been done according to minimum level of agriculture economic activity that member states have to determine, and they have to do it in an objective, non-discriminatory way, using, for example, income or using labor input as criteria. Another thing which I mentioned is the tools that and an objective towards an objective, which is to strengthen the position of farmers in the supply chain. While obviously the new CAP maintains the overall market orientation from the previous reforms, it encourages EU farmers to align supply with demand in Europe and beyond. But indeed, while putting a greater focus on strengthening the position of farmers in the supply chain. This is true. Member states do it through sectoral dedicated support. This is within the limit. So the limit, which is the 3% of the money that member states spend on direct payments allocation nationally. And we see that most plans use these sectoral interventions for fruit and vegetable sector, for apiculture, wine sector, even though they can, it's possible also to use it for other sectors, but this has been done by a few member states. All these member states in the national CAP strategic plans, they support this producer cooperation, participation in producer organization. This is not only to improve farmers' position in the value chain, but also to increase the value added of the agriculture production. I would ask you if you could tell me, because I do not see it, how much time I have spent in my presentation. Could you please let me know?
I think, yes, you are still on time, Catarina.
I'm still on time, okay.
Don't worry, because we have started the conference with a little bit of delay, so no problem.
Okay, because while I'm passing now to what is a really big focus of this reform. Indeed, farmers, well, they're facing a double challenge. They have to produce food, but at the same time, simultaneously protect nature, safeguard biodiversity. They have to use the natural resources prudently. And this is, which is also essential for the long-term, securing long-term resilience of the agriculture, for securing food production, but also for the quality of life of the citizens today and for the future generations. So there is a great emphasis in this new reform on the greener aspects. In building the strategies for climate, for natural resources, for biodiversity, all member states, they have to show that they will do more in this period than they did in the past. They have to demonstrate it. They also have to show and demonstrate that they contribute to key targets which are set in the EU legislation in the greenhouse, as regards greenhouse gas emissions, as regards ammonia, as regards conditions of water bodies, status of habitats and species, and it is also contribute to the Green Deal, to the achievement of these Green Deal targets. We are building here with the tools, some of the tools which were already under the which were also used under the current period. So when again, not building from the scratch, but the element that shows also the greater ambition of this new CAP is the extended rules, mandatory rules that all beneficiaries of the CAP plans have to meet. This is the conditionality rule. And these rules, they stem from two sources. One are those requirements that are established outside of the CAP. So all farmers in the EU have to meet them in EU countries, but they are of course linked with the CAP payment. So if farmers are found that they are not meeting them, then they will be penalized. And another set of rules that does come from the CAP itself are the so-called good agriculture and environmental conditions. Then this is the basis for this greater environmental ambition, and much of further ambition of the CAP plans lies in the various kinds of funded actions which are funded through what we call eco schemes and the rural development measures. What this reform brings in is that member states have an obligation to spend 25% of the direct payments budget on these environment and climate payments for environmental climate improvements. Without going into detail, at the level of these basic requirements, the main changes that and these basic requirements are then adopted by each member state is the protection of wetland and peatlands as very significant carbon sinks. Then another indicator of the greater level of ambition is that farmers will be required to do crop rotation on the land. Up to now, they had to do crop diversification, and up 4% of agricultural area will have to be devoted to non-productive areas for biodiversity and habitats protection. In terms of these voluntary measures that member states could or had to design, the new element, we can see that there's a great variety. There's a great variety of voluntary interventions, voluntary for farmers interventions across the board, as you can see here. Some of these interventions are in fact well-established EU practices for the organic farming and for integrated pest management. when we can see it's also a great variety in terms of how member states propose these instruments. Some of them are like a single support for specific practices. In other cases, they took a package approach. So a farmer is offered a package of option, a package of practices, and then with allocated weighting to the various practices according to their likely positive impact on the environment, and they are then encouraged to select these practices which are relevant to their farms. What some of these practices are also the carbon farming approaches, and these farming approaches aimed at supporting removal of CO2 from the atmosphere. This is a stepping stone for the future development, not just within the CAP, but outside, for upscaling the business model of carbon farming to creating it in the future as the new business model, not just for farmers, but also to as a source of economic diversification of rural areas. And the Commission last year put forward actually a proposal on sustainability carbon cycles, showing the way how to upscale this business model in the future. The new CAP, I would just take a few moments here. Still, what is the ambition of the new CAP? What we say that the CAP has to show greater performance. This is about the quality, what farmers are supposed to do, but also about the quantity. And this quantity is reflected in what we say, what we call the result indicators. And these result indicators express the desired result in the sense of intended level of the uptake of funded CAP interventions. So member states have to plan for this and say what will be the share of areas in the CAP plans which will be dedicated to carbon storage, for example, for carbon storage in soils and biomass. Although the figures here come from the proposed CAP plans, and they have to be, for the moment, viewed still with care. They reflect different approaches of member states, what feeds these result indicators, also the extent of different problems in member states. But I think they overall convey a sense of how CAP plans funded intervention will have addressed these various problems and contribute to the achievement of CAP specific objectives. One of these practices that are being supported are those for organic farming. This is in support contribution of the CAP plans to the increased organic farming production and the EU non-binding target for 2030 of having at least 25% of agricultural land under organic farming. This again shows a little bit an ambition of member states in the CAP plans, strategic CAP plans for the upcoming period. Some member states, in case of some member states, there is an increase of ambition of what will be funded under CAP by 25%. Some of them are actually planning to double the support for the organic production. What I would just like to mention very briefly is the other priority angle of the CAP, which is to make the CAP more socially sustainable. One of the problems, which is the need to ensure the new generation of the EU farmers, and there are specific instruments in the CAP that member states can use to that end, and a mandatory. There is a requirement of how much money they have to spend to this end. And we also see here approaches which are more innovative. So, for example, some member states are planning support for succession agreements. There's also more. A number of them have made some action specifically to increase incentives for women to stay in farming, for example, by offering higher support rates for female farmers. A big change in this iteration is the social conditionality, and this links the support that farmers receive to the respect by farmers of basic work and labor rights of farm workers, in terms of predictable employment conditions, in terms of on-farm safety and health. Thus, the farmers, if they are found in breach of these obligations, will see their payments under the CAP reduced. And finally, and also featuring on the agenda of today's conference, of course, the CAP has to respond to a variety of other societies' demands concerning the food and health, concerning the safe, nutritious and sustainable food, for reduction of food waste, improvement of animal welfare and health. And let me just tell you where we stay right now, what is the state of play and right now and the next steps. We are now, member states have already built their strategies along those elements that I have just presented. We are now reaching the last stage when the Commission finishes negotiations with member states of their CAP plans before it is able to approve it, and before member states put it in practice and in effect in 2023. So far, we have seen 13 plans which have been approved, and 15 are on the way until they are towards the approval. The ambition, of course, is to approve them by the end of the year, because they have to start so that they can start being put in operation in 2023. And it doesn't finish there. The policy cycle will continue with the monitoring at the level of member states, with the monitoring with the Commission. In 2023, the Commission will come forward with an assessment of the joint ambition effort and the ambitions that member states are doing in the CAP plan according to its specific objective and according to contribution to the Green Deal target. Before we come to the performance report, the evaluation, which will then hit the next cycle. And having said that, just indeed the very last thing, I would, for more information on the process, on the CAP plans, I would invite you to visit the Commission website. And it is, having said that, thank you very much. And I'm really sorry for being a bit, for taking a bit more of the time.
No, don't worry at all, Catarina. Thank you very much for your intervention. I think it has been such an interesting intervention regarding the main challenges for the next period as sustainability production without compromising the quality of the production, or the need to attract the young farmers and young workers to the fields, among others. I think they are very important issues to keep in mind for the coming years, and also to be addressed by the European Commission policies. I forgot to mention before, both for the live audience here in the room and for the participants who are joining online, that they can leave their questions on the chat we have on Zoom, and also for the audience here in the room. If somebody of you want to leave any questions to Catarina. I don't know if we have. Okay, we don't have questions in the chat. So thank you very much once again, Catarina.
Thank you for having me.
We will continue with our next session. European Union market access rules for agri-food products. This session will be led by Luc van Luberen, Senior Advisor, European Union Relations at the Chamber of Commerce of FOCA, sorry. So Luke, please, the floor is yours.
Listening to me in the last presentation of this morning, what's the goal of my presentation? In fact, already many years ago, we tried to put into one scheme a kind of helicopter view the most important rules that you need to know if you want to bring a product on the market in the European Union, produce it or sell it, any kind of agri-food product. Yeah, maybe first a few words about my organization. So I'm representing the Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Antwerp, Waasland, in the north of Belgium. We are a private organization. We are mainly helping our companies with lobbying, networking, and services. Yes, why did we show indeed an interest in organic food sector? What I've just mentioned already years ago, we tried to follow especially the internal market rules that are designed at European level for any kind of sector. But we especially wanted to look closer at the agri-food sector, because there you have lots of EU rules, and that was the first basic start for also engaging later in organic food as one element within the EU's legislation. But our chamber is also doing a lot of other activities to help companies on a path of more sustainable actions. Yes, indeed, my presentation is to give you this helicopter view on the EU market access rules for agri-food products. So what we try to do is to map, in fact, in chapters and sub-chapters, all main issues that you need to know when it comes to technical rules. Labeling, packaging. Within the technical section, I put also the rules on hygiene, contaminants. So this presentation has also an additional document next to it, a real checklist that can be used if you want to help a company to identify all the rules that are relevant. It happened already that I was, for example, giving a course like this in Ukraine, and that an entrepreneur just asked me, yeah, but just tell me this one rule that I need to know to bring that product on the market in the EU. Then I really tried to convince that you have to go through all these different topics that you see here on the screen, and to make maybe a combination of up to 10 different issues for understanding everything that you need to know from a legal point of view to bring products on the market in the EU. Okay, I'll try to go quickly through this presentation. First of all, you need to know that for the agricultural products, there is the so-called Common Market Organization. This regulation, you always see in the presentation here in all the slides, the reference numbers of these EU laws. This regulation covers already more than 20 agricultural sectors. And if one of the products for which you would like to get an insight in EU market access rules is already figuring in that list, then you know that this is already regulation to look at, for example, to find out if there are marketing standards or other issues that you need to know for that kind of agricultural products that you're looking at. For example, when you look at the fruits, there are still some 10 fruits for which very specific marketing standards are identified. That means very specific physical appearance is asked from a certain product. I'd show here on the slide a strawberry who is not meeting these mandatory specific marketing standards. That means that such a product can, of course, be used in producing of jams, but not sold as such as a fruit. Next to the agricultural products, within the same range of primary products, you can look at the fishery sector, and there is a similar common market organization. You see the regulation number on the slide with a lot of rules for the different types of fish with labeling obligations and many other issues that you need to know. Also, marketing standards are here explained for the fish sector. Now, when we leave these two primary sectors and we now look more at foodstuffs, that means prepared food, then we will go through different chapters with other rules that can or that may apply, but that depends, of course, on the product concerned. I put here one sub-chapter which I call production methods. Just for you to understand that there is, for example, a rule about frozen foodstuffs with some main requirements in terms of temperature and a few other issues. And there is also one ruling on ionizing radiation treatment. This is not very often used. In fact, there are only just a few products still that received an authorization to use that kind of ionizing radiation. In the list, I also have to say a few words about novel foods or GMOs. Novel foods means foods which are normally not known in the EU, but which may exist in other continents when they are launched in the EU for the first time. Probably you need to have to go through an authorization procedure. Of course, genetically modified organisms is another issue, but here again, you need to understand that this is very strictly regulated and only some authorized GMOs can be put on the market. You also have here on the slide a little view on how you can look up that kind of information in a community register of genetically modified food and feed. Now there is also a group of EU rules that apply to products which are made by the manufacturer for specific target groups. That means for specific people. And here we usually talk about dietetic food, but also the food which is meant for the very young persons amongst us. Let's say the babies and the very small children. For example, in the first topic here in this slide, I draw the attention to the real dietetic food that can be sometimes meant for replacing completely the food of a whole day or just one of your meals. But there is also an EU rule on dietary food for medical purposes. Again, these rules, of course, are only relevant if you're a manufacturer dedicated to the manufacturing of that kind of foodstuffs. And indeed, you have here a few EU laws explaining what are the conditions for producing cereal-based foods and other baby foods, and the production also of the infant formula. So these rules, of course, they explain very strictly how the composition of these products should be, very strict maximum pesticide residues, and of course some labeling and advertising rules. If you would like to bring a product on the market and you would like to call it gluten-free, then you should already look first at the EU rules that are on this slide, so that you look at the legal framework, from which moment, from which condition that is met, are you allowed to use the words gluten-free or very low gluten? And again, only relevant if you would like to manufacture products for these kind of purposes. If you would be involved in making food supplements, or if you would like to add vitamins and minerals to food, here again you see then some other two EU laws that are explaining these specific topics. What is more happening sometimes in the manufacturing process, that is that companies are using additives or they're using flavorings. Maybe not so much the other two issues on the screen here, food enzymes and extraction solvents. But then, of course, you have to look up in these annexes, usually in the regulations, and find out, am I allowed to use this or that additive, stabilizer, emulsifier, color for making this or that kind of foodstuff? And if yes, under which conditions, under which kind of limits is it possible to do that? So that is a bit similar for additives as well as for flavorings. On the slide, you also have the links to databases that are prepared by the European Commission to make that information more accessible. Now we will look at a few, I usually call that vertical laws. That means laws for specific foodstuffs. So for some products, there are specific legislation pieces worked out. First of all, you have some rules for those who are putting the edible oils on the market. for example, sunflower oil or rapeseed oil. There is one specific legal issue here explained, that is the level of erythric acid, because that should be not more than 5%. So that is for the edible oils. You also have a regulation on the beef or beef products with some rules on how to identify the cattle, how to label the beef products. If you would be more in the dairy sector, and if you would produce milk products such as caseins or caseinates or milk powder, for these groups of products, you also have specific rules that explain how you should manufacture the products and label them. And then we have a range of sweet products. You can all put them under the umbrella of sugars and honey. Of course, well known is the so-called chocolate directive, where you can read what kind of different types of chocolate names you can use to label your products, and what kind of fats are you allowed to use besides the cocoa butter. So that is all regulated in that directive. And very interesting is that for honey, you also have a specific rule directive that explains what the composition criteria are. And here, in fact, it's interesting to mention that we have a product of animal origin, which means that, and I usually explain that also when doing an exercise with honey, first of all, you need to know if your country is on an approval list of the European Commission for this kind of animal-based product. If your country is not an approved country yet, then simply you cannot export the honey to the European Union. And because it's an animal-based foodstuff, it needs to be accompanied by a health certificate. We also have some other products which a lot of countries can produce, of course, luckily. Then we talk about the fruit jams, for example, for which you have a specific directive, but also for the pure sugar itself, the sugar that you use in your coffee, for example, there is another directive. Now we look at a few rules for beverages. For natural mineral waters, there is a ruling which explains how the natural mineral water source needs to be recognized by the European Commission, but this is also possible for sources outside of the European Union. And there's also another rule about the quality, the healthiness of the drinking water. That is the water, for example, that we can find here when we wash our hands in the next room. That is that kind of water, of course, that should have the drinking water quality. A lot of countries, of course, they process fruits into fruit juices. So we also have a directive on the rules for the fruit juices. If you would be involved then in coffee or chicory extracts, there are some composition rules as well in another directive. Now, in another package, or in another, let's say, subchapter in this checklist, I include the hygiene package, whereby you have two packages. In fact, there's the basic package for any kind of company who is doing more than just being an agriculture company, so that who is processing food. And of course, one of the basic elements that you can find in these packages is the need to have a HACCP system. But the annexes of these regulations also demand a lot from the installations, the different rooms in your factory, of course. Now, what is interesting to know is that there is then a second package with hygiene rules, but then specifically for the companies that are producing food of animal origin. And of course, as I already mentioned, if you want to sell from a country outside of the EU, any kind of product with an animal origin, dairy foods, meat products, fish products, for all these products, there needs to be, first of all, an approval from Europe to export these products to the EU. And then each company, in fact, each physical installation that is making that food of animal origin will then get a specific approval number, which is then put also on the packaging of these food products. Very important also for any kind of product is this subchapter where I try to give a view on the rules on contaminants. The regulation that you see here on the screen is taking care of these contaminants that we don't like, of course, to have in the food, such as the heavy metals, the dioxins, etc. What is, of course, necessary, that is that for any kind of product, you can try to look up in that legislation what are some maximum levels for that kind of contaminants in any kind of food product. For example, if you would look for walnuts, you probably find then a maximum level of the mycotoxins, the aflatoxins, for example. So this is, of course, different depending on the foodstuff concerned. But we also have another type of contaminants because sometimes pesticides are used. So we also have rules on the maximum residue levels, the so-called MRLs of the pesticides, and there is a similar ruling then for the MRLs of the veterinary medicinal products, which are then used for the for example, the breeding of animals. So this also falls under food contaminants rules. Okay, we still have then a few other rules that I put under the big umbrella of labeling, but of course, in what we said already before, I put these rules in the first chapters under more technical requirements, but of course, a lot of rules have at the same time some technical and labeling issues amongst them. If you are bringing a consumer products on the market in the consumer packaging, then it's interesting to understand that the main rules for labeling a food product in the consumer packaging are explained in this regulation 1169 of 2011, where you see on the screen here already most of these compulsory labeling elements that are to be found on the packaging then. Another directive is explaining in some pages how you have then to put the batch number or the lot number on a foodstuff. So this is not a real complicated issue, but important to understand. I still put in a separate part in my list also the rules on nutrition labeling, but this is now since some years already integrated in the same regulation 1169. Important is, of course, that you follow a specific scheme for putting the nutrition values in one table, as it is explained here on this slide. And if you would like to put as a producer some nice promises on a foodstuff, a promise could be low fat or light or many other examples are there, then you should know that you can only use these words if that promise is, let's say, or if the product is at least meeting the target for that kind of promise that is explained in this regulation. So this is about nutrition claims, but it is even more complicated, of course, to try to see if you can use a health claim on a product. For example, lower cholesterol or many other health claims are already brought forward and examined on the European level. Some of them then received an authorization, but others were in fact rejected. Here you see then some of these nutritional claims that you can find explained and in that regulation. So if you want to label your product low energy or low fat, then you have to see, okay, what does it mean? What does my product need to reach in concrete terms that can be verified before you can use such a claim. Then still a few rules about the labeling of the alcoholic drinks. The same regulation 1169 helps you to find out how you have to look at the tolerances when you are putting an alcoholic strength percentage at the product. For example, if you have done a beer for which you say it has 5% alcohol, then you can see that the tolerance is 0.5. That is the deviation that is then allowed to have in the product. If you would produce very strong alcoholic drinks, then you can find in another regulation when you are allowed to call a product a rum, a whiskey, a vodka, what are the requirements to have to be implemented before you can use these words. But also you find here some information on protected geographical indications for these products. And we also have then two more rules in the field of alcoholic drinks. One is about the products that are called aromatized wines. You see here a picture of one such product, which is well known, I think, the Martini. You have Cinzano, of these kind of products. They also, let's say, they fall within the scope of this regulation, which asks something in terms of quality, the use of ethyl alcohol from these products. More important, probably for a lot of countries in the EU, is then the next regulation here on the screen about how to label wine. And of course, with a lot of information also of the very strong protections of certain names, the protected designations of origin, for example, for which champagne is maybe the most well-known. Then we also have some labeling rules for milk products. So you have to read then this regulation to understand if you could call your product butter, cheese, yogurt, or any of the other products that you see here on this list. I already mentioned in the previous chapter, but I just deliberately put it here again. If you would have as an ingredient a genetically modified organism in your foodstuff, then you should label it as such in the list of ingredients. So that's very important to know. We also have a regulation. It's the same regulation indeed of 1169, but I put it specifically here to not forget that if you are producing products which have caffeine or quinine, and if that content is, for example, more than 150 milligrams per liter, then you have to use the words high caffeine content. Here on the screen, you see these logos which are related to the protected indications. So for each of these indications, you have a list of products for which such a protection was given. Of course, you have to meet then all the requirements of that product in order to be allowed to use these logos. By the way, there are also a lot of products outside of the European Union who have already such a protected logo. So this is very well possible also for countries outside of the EU to be on that list. And in fact, in my list, you see here then the green leaf logo for the organically grown agricultural products. This is maybe it is indeed the only voluntary topic in this whole overview that I present to you today, because of course companies can decide voluntarily to go for meeting the requirements for biofood. And when they meet all these rules, of course, then the products that they bring on the market can have on the packaging this very nice green leaf logo. We are nearly at the end. Just a few words more about a few rules that I put under this main umbrella of packaging rules. First, if you are making your manufacturing pre-packed products, a pre-packed foodstuff means that you put a foodstuff always in the same kind of packaging of 1 kilogram, 1 liter, or whatever. If in principle you are free to choose the volume of that kind of packaging. There is only still one group of products for which there are some fixed pack sizes, and you can see the example here on the screen. That is for the wines and the spirits. What is more interesting to explain here, you see on the screen this E symbol. It's not referring to EU. This refers to this very old directive already created in 1976. And if you see this E logo next to the volume or the weight of a foodstuff, then it means that the company is implementing in a correct way the so-called filling up of the pre-packaging, meaning that there is a very strict metrological control in the manufacturing to check that if, for example, the product says that it contains 1 liter of orange juice, that the metrological control that is explained with some formula in that directive is followed by the machines, so that in reality you can only have a very small variation in the real contents, of course, in that bottle. But for nearly every manufacturer, this is a kind of must to at least to show that you have some very good machinery. Then if you are exporting to the European Union, you should know that in each member state, there is the obligation for each company that brings a foodstuff on the market with a packaging, that you register at a national scheme for the collection and the recycling of packaging waste. In a lot of EU countries, you find the so-called green dot logo, which is the logo used by that national organization. But there are some other logos as well. But just remember that it is a must to explain before you start selling your products to that and to register at that national scheme which kind of packaging, what kind of cardboard or plastic around your foodstuff you will bring on the market, and you have to pay, of course, then a contribution for all the volumes of the packaging waste that you will sell on that national market. Then the very last section in the list of EU rules for bringing food on the market in the EU, for which I will say a few words. And that are the rules about the so-called food contact materials. A food contact material is that kind of packaging that is directly touching the food. So it can be a packaging inside the packaging. You may have an outer packaging in cardboard, but inside maybe a plastic which contains the food, and this has then the direct contact with the food. Now, there is first of all, this framework legislation that is explained in this regulation 1935, mainly of 2004, for which then 17 groups of materials are identified, for which then specific rules can be further worked out. Now, I just end by showing in the next slide for one of these groups, which is, of course, a lot used. That is then a plastic material. That can be a plastic bottle having a drink, but it can be any other product that has plastic around it and touching directly the food. Then you need to know that this plastic that is used as the food contact material should be an authorized one, explained then in these regulations. And if you would buy then, of course, from a supplier such plastic for using it for your packing, then you have to ask from that supplier of the plastic material a declaration of conformity with this kind of rules. In concrete terms, it means that, of course, the type of plastic should be approved, and the so-called maximum migration limits have to be respected. Maximum migration limit means that if, for example, you buy some butter or margarine in a plastic cup, you have on a microscopic level a so-called migration. That means a transfer from the packaging into the food. And I think we all understand that this should be kept under certain limits. And then finally, I show here still a few websites where you can read also more about all these different rules. What I usually recommend is that you could combine this overview that I specifically created by using some interesting websites such as the Access to Markets database of the European Commission, where you usually then try to find this kind of information for a so-called HS code, a product code number that is also used for the international trade, for the customs purposes. But there you, in that database, you will not, for example, find the information on the packaging rules, because let's say in that system, it will not understand what kind of packaging you're using. So that's why my recommendation is try to use such a tool together with other very interesting websites that exist, and together I'm sure that you will reach the result of identifying 100% of the rules that you need to understand for bringing a product, a foodstuff on the market. And hereby I end this presentation. I had to go very fast because usually I try to explain this course in some 3 hours, but at least I hope that I could make you enthusiastic for trying to use such a tool to help digging into EU market access rules, but to try to do it especially in an efficient way. Thank you very much.
Very much, Luke. I'm sorry for the initial mistake with the presentation. I guess this happened when you are like our start speaker today because you are intervening twice. So, so thank you very much for this intervention and also for the one that is yet to come. It's been such an interesting intervention, especially for those companies outside from the European Union or those companies from the Eastern partner countries. We are sure that some of them are following this session online today. So I think it's been a very interesting session for them. I wonder if we have any questions here in the room or just if we, oh, sorry, if we can have a microphone. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for such a concentrated legislation presentation. That was wonderful. I think if the company's representatives heard that, they are very lucky, you know, to see what you've done for them. My question concerns very short one, but I have more than maybe we will have a chance to during the lunch to talk. My question concerns now I saw in your presentation there is energy restricted products and more coming to the market, like in powder, especially, you know, in sachets, you put into water and then you have like mix very quickly and then you drink that. And in this powder, you have plenty of plants, you know, and they are under certain list, you know, biological plants with specific health effect. Have you heard about that list? And is it in your presentation? Because I just roughly checked, it's not there. Have you heard about having medicinal effect on special list of such plants? And I think 1 year ago, they were thinking to kick out that, you know, forget that list. Have you heard the story?
Not directly, but I would recommend to consult this legislation on the health claims, nutritional and health claims, but then especially on the part of the health claims. There is also a dedicated page at the site of the European Commission where you can read a lot about all these health claims and which of them were already analyzed, rejected, etc. But I can certainly try to guide you to that information. But I think you probably have to find it somewhere there, because if I hear you already, probably if the product has a certain health aspect and it is marked as such or labeled as such, then you automatically I think, come to that legislation on the health claims. So somewhere, I think...
Not that one. There is a specific list I'm asking, but maybe later we will talk about just explaining what I mean it. Okay, thanks a lot.
But we can try to find out. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Any other questions, maybe on the chat or here from the audience in the room? Okay, it's okay. So now we will have our lunch break. I think we will be back in 1 hour around. So please, for those people attending online, you can remain connected to the session, or maybe you can connect again in 1 hour. So we will be back later. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome again to our conference for the Biofood Consortium. I hope you had enough time to enjoy your lunch and also to have a cup of coffee, just to keep updated for the second part of this conference. We will continue for this second part with the intervention of our 2 sectorial experts within the Biofood Consortium. They will speak about how to improve the competitiveness of the instant partner operators of the bioorganic food sector. We will count with Africa Romero, sectorial expert within the Biofood Consortium, and Maurizio Tomalino, managing director at Europe Link Business Agency. Africa, can you hear us?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, perfect, Africa. So the
Can we
floor
have-
is yours.
Can we have the presentation? Oh. Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Carmen. Thank you very much for having me today. This is a great honor to be here with you. And also I would like to thank to all the organizers for this interesting event. As you have said, my colleague Mauricio Torellino, I are going to talk about how to improve the competitiveness of the Eastern Partnership operators of the bioorganic food in the Eastern Partnership plan. So, first of all, I would like to point out the positive trend of the European Union on organic products. The popularity of organic products has greatly increased in Europe and globally. In the European Union, the demand of organic products is growing faster than the supply, since the consumers are more environmentally aware and looking for healthy food. And also climate change is also having a big impact. This tendency brings an opportunity for Eastern Partnership, which have experienced an important growth to the export demand. We have to say that agriculture is essential for the economy of these countries, as well as an important contributor to their GDP and employment, though we have to make agriculture more attractive to new generation. In the European Union, there is a high demand of organic products, which the Eastern Partnership countries are major producers. Actually, the demand is higher than the offer. In specific, there is an undersupply of raw materials of organic herbs, especially honey, and there is a high demand of organic fruits, berries, and nuts, as they serve as ingredients for a big range of products, not only for food products, but also for cosmetic, and in some cases for pharmaceuticals. Compared to Central Europe, Ukraine and Moldova have a competitive advantage in the production of organic oilseeds, including soybeans. Organic feed is also facing an interesting growth. There is a potential for growth to meet the demand. In most of the Eastern Partnership, organic farming is still in a development phase with a high potential for growth. The demand of organic products offer an opportunity to develop organic farming in the regions, making it possible to protect biodiversity, the environment, and family farming. It is evident that several European and non-European countries have well understood the potential of the Eastern Partnership bioorganic products. This represents a solid reason for these countries to increase awareness of the potential of their own natural heritage. Moreover, the support from the European Commission is essential for the development of the organic sector in these countries. Trade agreement with the European Commission simplifies trade processes, reduces custom barriers, creates new business contacts, and so on. It is important to raise awareness of export opportunities for organic producers to take advantage of these trade agreements. Therefore, take into account the above said, sales of organic production in the European Union are guaranteed. There are opportunities for growth in the international market, and especially in the European Union. Let me see. Then, what is needed? The potential coming from the current positive trend of organic food in international markets, especially in the European Union, represent an important incentive for growth. Given the great potential of Eastern Partnership countries, all alternative strategies must be directed to improve the current situation of the sector, with the aim to increase the level of competitiveness and become a fundamental pillar for their economies. Here we can see most relevant needs identified. First, the increase of conversion of land. It should be noted that the percentage of land under organic production is rather limited in these countries. It is therefore necessary to provide a conversion of land to organic crops. In order for this to happen, it is necessary to focus on the benefits that organic production can offer, especially in terms of economic performance, which is a key point for operators in the sector. Secondly, government support. A proactive role of local government remains necessary to encourage the process of growth in a sector that is indeed strategic for the social stability and economic expansion of these countries. There is a need for grant programs focusing on capacity building in the organic sector, supporting organic operators, producers, and processors with a focus on sales and marketing in the international and domestic market. Moving on to certification and control bodies, further expansion of the organic food market is expected in the coming years, although this will depend on certified and on credibility of the origin through certification bodies now present worldwide. In this context, there is a tendency in Europe to give credibility to only a few certification bodies that are considered capable of guaranteeing genuine organic production, and therefore to give the consumer confidence in the purchase of the products. Therefore, it would be important for producers to carefully consider which certification bodies are considered credible in the market of interest. Another need is organic farming cooperative and organic agriculture union. In the Eastern partnerships, organic food production is largely carried out by small and medium enterprises, often farmers or family run companies. This requires financial resources and knowledge of foreign markets and the regulation to enhance the role of small medium enterprises. It is necessary the creation of a strong business association to reinforce the effectiveness of the internationalization process. Producer organizations have greater market power and generally contribute to reinforce the position of organic farmers in the agri-food supply chain. Also, it could allow small farmers to share the cost and administrative burden of certifications. Next, control bodies for organic production and traceability. This country must develop a severe control system based on whole supply chain and carry out transparency audits. Also create an organic fraud prevention policy to reinforce the export of goods. In terms of food commodities, organic supplies are managed by a specialist operator who are often able to control purchases at the origin, guaranteeing the authenticity, traceability, and biological validity of the products. In this case, it is necessary to prepare to foresee peculiarity in production as well as in meeting production quantities and distribution conditions. Dialogue and collaboration between private and public actors are essential to implement the pathway to grow the sector and to make it economically stable. In particular, it is needed the collaboration of small-scale producers, business support organizations, government authorities, and all stakeholders. Lastly, it is very important and needed the investment in technology, agriculture management, and training. Innovation is essential to allow organic products to be distributed at the requested condition from the external market. Foreign investment and government financial support are essential to introduce and expand the innovation among small and medium enterprises, increasing competitiveness. These countries must take advantage of the know-how of organic farming in European countries and the interest in the development of the organic farming in the Eastern Partnership to meet the demand. This can be achieved by promoting the exchange of best practices, developing courses on organic farming, and introducing innovative solutions. To conclude, the potential of bioorganic food sector is evident in all Eastern Partnership countries. In fact, thanks to the rich biodiversity that characterizes them, there are opportunities for growth in many international markets, especially in European Union. Several points were identified as an area to work on, from the fragmentation of the sector, which is often characterized by micro-producers, to the need for investment and the revision of legislative and financial frameworks. Now I give the floor to my colleague, Mauricio Tomalino. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Africa. Thank you, everybody. Good afternoon. Now I try to share my presentation. Thank you again, and I just continue a bit the presentation of Africa about the alternative strategies for these sectors, about, of course, the EAP countries. As Africa said before, the sector is characterized by micro operators, so small dimension, and so we have to face some problems. And here I'm going to put my focus on some strategies to put in practice in order to allow the sector to grow, especially in relation to the possibilities and opportunities that we have seen in the European market, but not only, because the organic food sector is growing up all over the world. So the first point is in relation to the valorization of the products, of the organic products. This situation of small producers in all the 6 EAP countries is to consider not a disadvantage, but the diversity of also in relation to the different situation at natural level. So the biodiversity is something that can consider an asset. So what is important is to put in evidence that each production has specific characteristics. And of course, the biofood is very close to the natural aspects. So this point can be considered, as I said, an asset. But it's important to proceed to present these peculiarities that are linked to the products, but also to what is around the product. So I mean the history, the tradition, the typicalities of the different areas, because as we know, in each area there are some practices that are carried out since many years for each production. So it's important to identify the different attitudes, so the specificalities of the products, and the procedure is a sort of mapping of the different typicalities, and this can be realized also through platforms, so digital platforms, where it's possible to created storytelling. So the storytelling process is something that can inform people about characteristics of the different product, the natural aspects of each product. And the collaboration with another sector very close, the ecotourism, is something that can create the right synergy, no, to promote the sector abroad, to invite tourists to visit, to understand what are the different products. And so it's possible to think, no, to move these towards the possibility to promote abroad these typical products. So the first point is the valorization of the products, even to create what sometimes is a weak point. I mean, the low margins, economic margins that affected this sector. In a way to create value, is possible also to achieve this increasing of margins for farmers, for producers, which is very, very important. The second practical aspect, okay, is, as we know, the internationalization, because the opportunities coming from Europe, but not only, are interesting. But of course, it's important to create the opportunities to meet, of course, the counterparts that can be buyers, but not only, also investors. We said that for the sector, it is important to receive investments in order to improve the capability in the production, but even in the distribution, in the logistics. So the need of investment, of course, as we know, are through the possibility to present the different situations, and of course the role of the BSOs, business support organizations, is very important in this. So events, of course, the main shows of the sector, but even the B2B events organized, of course, with the support of Chamber of Commerce or associations. But very important, the incoming missions to allow the interesting operators, foreign operators, to see in person what are the opportunities, which are the main possibilities they can get in the collaboration with these countries, with the operators of these countries. And then also the projects of research from universities, from stakeholders of this sector, because they can create inside the projects some opportunities. So the internationalization is not only to look as a export promotion and stop, but even as an opportunity to find collaboration, investments, and so on. So the second part is possible, but there are problems with the dimension. So small operators, small organizations have problems to face the internationalization. So what also Africa mentioned before, the problem is the small structure, no, inside the companies. Many times they do not allow to do something of challenges. So for instance, to internationalize, to process with internationalization. The clustering is something that can help, because can create this part of organization with specific focus, for instance, the export promotion, but even for the logistics. Sometimes it's also interesting for the investments, you know, to create a common investments among different small farmers, operators of the sector. So also for financial funds collection, because the possibility to be more trusted from the financial system of the banks and so on, through for instance, a consortium or an association or a cooperative is more possible than in a situation where a small company asks some money alone without a possibility to guarantee. But not only, also for the traceability processes and certification procedures, as Africa said, very important, not for the credibility of the production. Through common disciplinaries is possible now to create a sort of control and to show how is controlled the system inside the cluster. So this is something also useful for the potential clients. The problems to face, also in relation to my experience, are mainly related to the fact that the singular operators, usually they have individual approach. So they fear to have the competitors inside the cluster. So they don't look at the more possibility, more opportunities they can have staying together. But it's necessary to pass this and to believe that the opportunities are wider, so there are, only if they put together. Gather together is very important for them. Then the help for the government is very important, especially for appropriate rules, not to facilitate the creation of the clusters with specific laws, and or even with specific tools to support with specific financement, or for instance to give some help in the taxation and so on. And then very, very important is that the clusters must have a plan, a strategy, common strategy. Otherwise, it's impossible to achieve specific goals, of course. So in practical, these three points, factors, the valorization, the internationalization, and the clustering, can stay together, but can be effective in what is the increase of the competitiveness of the sector for the EAP countries. This was an output of our analysis we have done through 2 documents that we have presented. So I thank you for your attention, and I remain with Africa at your disposal for any question.
Thank you very much, Maurizio. Thank you very much, Africa, for your contribution to this conference, and also for your contributions within the BioFood Consortium. It is really much appreciated. I wonder if there is any questions from the in presence audience or from the people connecting through Zoom. Do we have any questions? No. Okay, so thank you again, Maurizio, Africa. We will continue this conference with the next session. The next session is about food wasting. It's called Let's Not Waste Food, 5 scenarios from youth perspective. It's being led by Alvilla Salas-Eviziene. She's a head doctor at KTU Food Institute. So please, Alvilla.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, friends. Yes, it's working. Yeah. Colleagues, food system representatives, researchers, lecturers, and other friends who are joining food system and transition food system towards sustainability and resilience. My name is Alvija Šalaševičienė. I'm from Kaunas University of Technology. I'm Food Institute Director. Myself, personally, I'm participating in groups where we have visioning where food systems going 2050 and 2100. So myself, I would call it, I'm a dreamer, because really I need to look far, far, far in the future together with my colleagues from SCAR Food System Group. Here today, the reason I'm here is to represent and to show that the power of science is very important to lead innovations and to lead innovations with high quality. And on the example of let's not waste food, I would like you to show how from high above science initiatives, we go down with suggestions to our business unit, to our individuals, to NGOs, researchers, etc. So now I will try to move a bit. Let me try how it works. And today, quickly, I would like to show and point out certain moments. Let's not waste initiative, and how the youth or young generation react, what is the situation in Lithuania, Denmark, and Finland, and check the youth reaction on wasting food and what could happen out of this. And I would like to start with a nice quotation I'm happy with to present and to say, if you're serious about changing things in life, you will find a way. But you are not, you will find an excuse not to make it. And this is from Jen Sincero, so it's always to remind ourselves that plenty of excuses not to do things, but of course, if you are willing to do things, so you will find a way how to do this. And I would say that I'm representative of Food Institute, and we are changing life, we are changing things. And already as researchers, I said and I promised that we need to be in front of all with ideas, those implement and come up to with innovations to the business or individuals. And already, let's not waste the keywords. We started year 2015. We started talking to the government that we need to check how the people wasting, why they are wasting, what their reasons to waste, how we change as Lithuania with the thought that if we see the bread on the floor, we need to take it from the floor and kiss it. I don't know how it's in your cultures, but we appreciated the food in such a way that really we need to show it. And during, political and historical perturbances or changes, it was interesting to check how our nation is doing towards food wasting, with special focus on the youth, young generation. And I'm so happy to represent that we got support from our Nordic Council of Ministers office in Lithuania to continue and to check how young people are thinking on food waste and to measure the progress from year 2016 up to year 2022. And for you to say quickly, I would say that food waste always connected with challenges. And the main are mentioned here. Of course, it's connected with financial loss, severe environmental burdens, risk to food safety, and deepening inequalities social. Interesting that researchers from Denmark, Copenhagen Business School, from Luke, it's a Finnish Natural Resource Institute, and from Kaunas University of Technology, including NGO Anthropos, we addressed this issue to check how in Denmark, Finland, and Lithuania, young generation is doing towards food waste. And the main goal was to find out the situations, why and when, young generation is wasting, and to try to ask them what could be done differently to avoid food waste in the future. And to be true, this was done with young people. We invited young people from 18 to 26. We call it Z generation. We did 9 focus groups, 3 in Lithuania, 3 in Denmark, and 3 in Finland. And we had discussions with them towards special issues. First, we asked them, are there any external occasions that the young people are forced to make food waste? The second scenario was connected to, it takes a bit of time, with feeling and the young people expertise. Do they have enough expertise to assess if the food is with high quality or low quality? The third scenario, we asked them, what about their kitchen habits? Can they make not wasting foods? The fourth scenario is connected with shopping habits. Are they able to buy food that not so much food wastage would happen there? And the fifth scenario was in connection, are they using modern technologies helping for them to reduce food waste? And we did this, and after talking and discussions with them, we heard young people's voice. And this voice is already, we put in guidelines. It's publicly available. And here it's under the title of Let's Not Waste Food, where you can find how young people talking from Finland, Lithuania, and Denmark. Can I tell you some sentences how Finnish young guy is saying what happens, how it came that he wasted food? Listen. When my girlfriend and I moved in together, she noticed that I was throwing a lot of more food in the garbage than she was. She suggested that every time I throw food out, I put money into the bowl, and after some time to see how much money I collected throwing food. So that was Finnish participant telling. And Lithuanian guy told, anyway, it started when I moved to live alone. So young people start living alone. At first, you buy product that seems cheaper if you buy a bigger package, which you end up not using all of. And it turns out that so much money is wasted. So this is how Lithuanian young generation is saying how it happens. And after these all discussions, what researchers we did with them? We co-created solutions for, if it's visible, NGOs and educational institutions, for researchers, for policymakers, even for private sectors and for individuals. So that means after this focused discussions, we were able to conclude what needs to be done to prevent food waste. There are the more examples how we did and how we concluded on what needs to be done. Good point is that young generation is going really good way towards preventing of food waste. It's getting better and better, but of course there are gaps. We need to fix it. We need to help to fix it. And now, as business representatives or other representatives, you will see what needs to be fixed, that young generation would even more prevent food wastage. First of all, we need to train them to measure the food waste. This we understood that not everybody are measuring food wastage, and there are plenty of apps helping to measure how much food waste they produce. Then the next point is interesting, that these big packages where you can buy 2, 3 at a time, it's not okay. And they need to evaluate the price of the packages in the food, because sometimes you buy cheap big packages, but then, you know, plenty things food are left. The third one, what is lacking, and we need to teach them as researchers or as business representatives, we need to learn them to understand whether the food is eatable after the expiration day. Yourself, check. Sometimes you check the product and it's at the edge of expirational day. You would say, like in Hamlet said, to eat or not to eat, yeah? So for you, it's very important, but the most important for young generation to understand, can you eat with molds or is it dangerous? So we need to learn them when food is safe to eat or when not. So also what we found out from discussion with young generations, especially in Denmark, that they are participating in food sharing. Kind of, there are networks, they share food. For example, if one person was making dinner and there are plenty of food left, he would really share, having network, saying, inviting, or just, you know, giving away the food she produced a lot. So this food sharing is not very common in Lithuania, but I hope it's coming. And also about leftovers and food surplus when eating out, young generations eating out. So for them, it's important that they can pack home and eat at home. But they also expressed a kind of question, what about packaging? Because if we go out, take food back home, usually it's plastic. So also we need to train what package could be when you take food home. Interesting point, what they mentioned, they would need to get more knowledge on planning food and leftovers. It's interesting what young generation told. It's so boring to eat one, the second, the third day, the same food. So what they expressed, they would need to get much more experience, you know, in variation and making of different food. So this is also what they mentioned. And the last one, interestingly, connected only to Lithuania. We have, or I would say young people have stigma to buy discounted food. I don't know how in your country, but in Lithuania, usually in the shops, there are places where you can find discounted food, but it look, I would say, a bit ugly. not attractive, wrapped somehow, yellow labels on. And some young people, they do not dare go to this place and save that food that could be saved from being wastage. So, and that belongs only in Lithuania, because Danish young people say, we don't have such a stigma. We just go and buy because it's cheaper. As well in Finland. So therefore, in the guidelines we concluded, so those guidelines you see here, how it looks like, we concluded that such a stigma still exists in Lithuania and we need to reduce it. Here is the short film.
Projektas vadinasi Nešvaistykime maistą, arba anglų kalba Let's Not Waste Food, kuriame dalyvavo 4 organizacijos iš esmės iš 3 šalių. Tai Kauno technologijų universitetas, Antropas, taikomosios antropologijos organizacija, Danijos verslo mokykla ir natūralių išteklių institutas Suomijoje. Tai buvo tarptautinis tyrimas tirti jaunų žmonių švaistymo maisto ir nešvaistymo maisto motyvacijas. Na ir kodėl tas maistas yra švaistomas? Projektą finansavo Šiaurės ministrų biuras Lietuvoje.
Ieškojom situacijų, kaip jas įvardinti, kada jaunimas mėto maistą, kada jis išmeta, dėl kokių priežasčių ir kaip galima padėti sumažinti tą kiekį.
Dažnai ir paprastos gairės, kurias mes sutinkame, arba patarimai įprastiniai, pavyzdžiui, kodėl nešvaistyti maisto ir kaip nešvaistyti maisto, sakykime, planuoti, užsipirkti maisto savaitį, šitai amžiaus grupiai dažnai netinka. Mūsų tikslas buvo suprasti, kaip skirtingi sektoriai galėtų atsižvelgti į jaunų žmonių poreikius.
Tokia lengva ranka tą maistą iššvaistydami, iš tikrųjų nei gerbiame tų pačių augintojų, nei atsižvelgiame, kiek jie sunaudoja energijos ir kitų išteklių pagaminti mums tą maistą.
Gaila būna tą maistą išmesti, nežinai, kad tiesiog už tą maistą sumokėjau, tiesiog išmesti į šiukšliadėžę.
Jei kalbame apie maisto galiojimo detalės, tai prieš išmetant aš visada pauostau arba paragauju.
Nusipirkus didesnį kepalą duonos, jį ilgiau išlaikyti, tiesiog padėjus į šaldytuvą, nieko tai duonai neatsitinka.
Man tai kažkaip atrodo natūralu, kad tai jeigu tu jos dar turi ir ten tik kelios dienos, kai baigės, dar ten mėnesį gali valgyti.
Daržovės gan greitai jos genda, bet jau tu vis tiek pirkdama daržovę, tu jau pasiemi ar tai žalesnę kažkokią, tai žinai, kad gal vėliau ją naudosi. Jinai, žodžiu, sunoksta šaldytuve.
Nes susigalvoju naujus patiekalus, pavyzdžiui, savaitės gale gaunasi dažniausiai likutinis maistas ir vienas kažkoks patiekalas toks įdomesnis. Ir visus tos likučius tiesiog sunaudoju.
Aš labai dažnai einu į tą skyrių, kur ten būna 50% jau baigia galiotis beveik. Nes man atrodo, kad aš išgelbėju ten maistą, nes jis vis tiek dar tinkamas vartoti, tai kodėlgi ne.
Jeigu tam vakarui pasigaminu kažkokį patiekalą ir žinau, kad tą sunaudosiu, tai viskas, manau, tvarko, kad ir be pasibaigiančio tą galiojimo nusipirku tą prekę.
Vakarykštė vakarienė, jinai labai tinkami rytdienos pietus.
Aš esu linkus apsipirkinėti po nedaug. Tarkim, po 3 morkas, 2 svagūnai ir ten dar kažkas tai, bet dažniau, nes aš taip suvalgau labiau.
Vis tiek mes mokame pinigus už maistą, tai kam jį išmesti į šiukšlių dėžę?
Kiekvienas mes kažkodėl tai pagalvojame prieš mestamas maistą. Gal kartais nepagalvojame, kiek mes jo išmetame, kiek tai kainuoja.
Tos dabar gairės yra pasiekiamas visiems internete. Pirmas žingsnis, kur būtų vienoje vietoje sudėta viskas, ko jauniems žmonėms reikia, kad jie mažiau švaistytų maisto iš skirtingų sektorių.
Ačiū labai ir noriu Oh, sorry so much. I switched to Lithuanian language just to thank you. Yeah, and it's my pleasure to present these results. And here in this video, you saw the positive thinking of young generation, what they are doing. They put raw tomato into the fridge, thinking that, it will be not so fast rotten and it mature in the fridge, and then they can take it and eat it. So, and the final notice for you that this guideline really includes many suggestions for business, for researchers. So you can create many more projects from this project. And I would invite you for a journey returning the same quotation, be serious about changing attitudes towards food waste in your life, and you will find a way. So let's not waste food. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alvilla, for such an inspiring session. I agree with you with the stigma issue, because I usually use the Too Good To Go app in my city, and it's not common. People don't really know this app. It's becoming more popular among the young people. But I agree with you, because when we go to at groceries and we see the fruit or vegetable with just little scratches or picks or something like that, we refuse to have that kind of fruit. But in fact, the fruit is perfect inside and you can perfectly eat it. So I'm getting used to this app, and I usually use it for groceries, and I feel quite good for try to contribute to avoid the food wastage. So I wonder if somebody has any questions about this session, or somebody from Zoom chat. That's okay. So I think we can continue. Now it's my turn. During this session, I'll be presenting the EU for Business Connecting Companies projects and results from the Biofood Consortium. As you may already know, this project is funded under the EU for Business initiative of the European Union. This initiative aims to deepen relations between the European Union member states, and the inter countries by promoting the cooperation actions for business support organizations and SMEs from both the European Union member states and the inter partner countries. This cooperation can lead also into sustainable economic growth, job creation, and promotion of trade and business links between the European Union and inter countries. The main objectives of these initiatives are the development of sustainable and equitable economic growth models in the inter countries, which can generate more investment and improve socioeconomic conditions and employment opportunities. The other of the main objectives are the support capacity of sectoral business support organizations to enhance the SMEs internationalization, export capacities and access to new markets, and the support of SMEs towards trade, and more specifically towards the export to the European Union countries. The action was divided into 5 sectorial consortiums. We led the Biofood Consortium along with Shaolei, Armenia and Moldova Chamber of Commerce. All of those consortia were composed by 2 business support organizations from the European Union and 2 business support organizations from the inter countries. And our role within the project was acting like intermediates between the granted projects and Eurochambers, and supporting Eurochambers on the management of the projects. The initiative was divided into 3 types of actions for granted proposals, that are the B2B matchings, that is like SMEs to SMEs contacts and trade opportunities by exploring the opportunities for cooperation and working on the creation of a common product or service. The study visits, which gave the possibility to learn on-site from other business support organizations and enhancing the understanding and knowledge on the inter countries about the European Union countries and vice versa, and also offer an opportunity for networking. And finally, The trainings, which were designing as capacity building or peer-to-peer learning, like coaching, let's say, to establish direct links between the business support organization from the European Union and the INSTER countries. The aim was to increase knowledge on trade environment and investment opportunities, peer-to-peer exchanges, as I said, sharing of best practices and knowledge, and in general, mutual cooperation. From the last semester of 2020, both EU chambers and the sectorial consortium were informing the general audience about the initiative and the call for proposals, setting a deadline for the 30th of April 2021. For Biofood Consortium, we received a total of 16 proposals that were evaluated under the European Commission criteria, and finally, we granted 12 proposals, as it was initially planned, 4 B2B actions, 3 trainings, and 5 study visits. Here we can see a summary of the 12 proposals granted, the type of action, and the main focus of all of these projects, along with the countries that were involved in those actions. Later, after this session, we will have another session where we will have the opportunity to know some more about some of these projects. Oh, sorry, I forgot that initially the projects were planned to be developed between July 2021 and May 2022, depending on the duration of each actions and their starting date. But then in February 2022, the war in Ukraine hit the European and Eastern countries scenario. And given the great involvement of business support organizations from Ukraine within this project, it was decided to establish like a suspension period between mid-March 2022 and mid-May to better decide just to what to do with those projects, because they weren't able to continue with their actions. Sadly, after that, the situation remained and still remains nowadays. So Eurochambers gave the opportunity to those projects who couldn't continue with their activities to early terminate, and some others which could continue to redesign their action plan and establish a new schedule to retake their activities between the 1st of July of the present year and the 1st of September, to be finished by 31st of December at the latest. As I said, most of the projects where Ukraine was involved had to be terminated, and at the moment we have 5 terminated projects, 5 successfully finished projects, and 2 ongoing projects. So hopefully at the end of the project, we will have 7 out of 12 actions successfully complete. Here we can see a general overview about the results of the project. These results are at the moment approximated because, as I said, there are still some projects being implemented. Some other actions have just finished and they are still collecting the data related to the final results. But approximately, we can say within this consortium that around 40 BSOs from the European Union and 35 BSOs from the INSTER countries were involved in the action and benefited from them. Around 150 SMEs from the European Union and 140 SMEs from the INSTER countries. Around 60 BSOs and SMEs were led by women. Around 95 BSOs and SMEs were based in rural areas. Around 25 BSOs and SMEs were owned by people under 35 years old, sorry. and around 60 business meetings and study visits were developed. We can say that thanks to these actions and this cooperation, around 10 contracts for cooperation were signed. There is proven increase of export in some SMEs involved in the actions. They have developed around 10 new services, and also around 10 memorandums of understanding were signed. And as I said, there are still 2 projects ongoing. There are still a project that have just finished a couple of weeks ago, so they are still collecting the data related to the final results. So we can say that there being a great amount of final beneficiaries that had been benefited from the action from both the European Union and the Eastern countries. And that's all from my side. I also want to take the opportunity to invite you to follow us on our social networks. We usually keep you updated of the actions developed within the projects. That's all from my side. Thank you very much. As I mentioned before, now we will have the opportunity to know some more about some of the actions, some of the granted proposal. I will invite my colleague Pablo Morales to come to the stage because he will be moderating this session. So please, Pablo.
Thank you, Carmen. Good afternoon to all, to everyone, and those attending online and those present here. As Carmen mentioned, we are now to a different part, a different session. We have listened until now very interesting intervention from different speakers approaching different aspects of the food sector and the organic sector. Now, and also as you saw the results shown by Carmen, we are going to listen to the real protagonists of the results expressed. As you can see during this project, only in the food sector, more than 300 companies have cooperated through different granted projects. So now we would like to hear the specific experiences of this project. So I will invite 4 different projects which finished successfully, and their project managers will show us how they cooperated. I will, first of all, I will invite the project Match and Grow that will be presented by Tatiana Glicheva, who is the project manager of this project in Dobrich Chamber of Commerce and Industry from Bulgaria. Please, Tatiana.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everyone. I'm honored to present our project results of Match and Grow, a project which was completed and implemented in the year 2021. The implementation started in July and finished in the end of December. Project partners were only 2 organizations, our Chamber of Commerce and Industry from Dobrich, Bulgaria, with the Enterprise Armenia, the Fund Investment Support Center. The territory of the activities covered Bulgaria and Armenia. And the main goal, as hope the other projects have the same, were to contribute to the internationalization of the Bulgarian and Armenian companies in the bioorganic food sector. That means producers, wholesalers, distributors, agents, etc. Our targeted groups, we divided them in direct target groups and indirect target groups. 20 were the selected beneficiaries. 11 were registered in rural areas. 11 were managed by women, and 6 of the owners, managers of the companies were under the age of 35. I will not speak now. We will show you our results with the short video. I think that you could understand how intensive were our activities. We managed to organize a lot of visits on the spot, not only B2B meetings. We had 2 fairs, we participated with stands in each of the countries. So it was really a lot of work, and we are happy that companies were satisfied. And they managed to improve their competitiveness, and we really hope that the project will be sustainable, and we rely on future opportunities by other European projects, also by Eurochambers chances in the future to continue the cooperation and to be more fruitful cooperation between the companies in the bioorganic sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tatiana. Thank you for your presentation and the video. There is no anything else better than a video with smiling faces. And we also could see that you overcome all the challenges that the pandemic put us all, and you did it also with the complication of transnational cooperation. So congratulations for this work. Now we will see another project. The project we are going to see now is B2B of food. That was developed by the Polish Chamber of Commerce, and it will be presented by its project manager, Piotr Lipiek. Please, Piotr, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. My name is Piotr Lipiec. I am representing the Polish Chamber of Commerce. So what I'm doing there, first of all, I am a senior officer responsible for the cooperation with the Eastern European countries. Moreover, I'm a project manager. That's why I'm here today. And I would like to first give you a brief introduction to what wait a moment. It's okay. So I will start with a few words about what is the Polish Chamber of Commerce. This is the biggest independent business support organization in Poland. It was established in 1991. And right now, this is the biggest gathering of business community. We are gathering over 160 chambers of commerce, regional ones, bilateral, industrial. And through this network, we have access to almost 300,000 Polish companies. So this is making us like in touch with around 1/5 of total business community in Poland, which is over 2 million companies right now. And in the projects, we often have a role of the leader or a partner. So let me, not this one, okay. Let me start with the introduction of our action, which is B2Bio Food. This is the action that we are implementing together with our partners from Italy, Modena Chamber of Commerce, as well as 2 Ukrainian chambers, one from Kirovgrad region and second from Sumy region. As most of activities in the project, our target is to organize meetings between SMEs from the European Union and the Eastern Partnership. And those who we especially address it to are the companies that are located in the rural areas, that are managed by women, and the entrepreneurs under 35 years old that we succeed to gather. We don't have an exact number right now because we are still implementing the action, but all our expected numbers are reached so far. And still we have one event in front of us because, as you can see on the slide, we already implemented 3 events. One, it was a participation of the project members in the international fairs in Rzeszów online. As you can see, most of the activities or maybe even all of them, are implemented in online regime because the first part of the implementation was related, it started in the time of COVID, and the second half started in the, the peak of Ukrainian war. And even though our partners are still, struggling to implement it, we very admire their work, because even they don't have electricity sometime or have some other problems, they keep continuing and gathering companies. Second event was on January this year. It was an online meeting organized by us, by Polish Chamber of Commerce, where we succeed to organize over 24 B2B meetings between European and Eastern Partnership companies. Not so long ago, a month ago, we had another meeting organized by Modena Chamber of Commerce. It was the analog, and it was also successful. Now in December, we are waiting for the final event. It will be the biggest conference so far, closing our activity, and it will be organized online by our Ukrainian partners. So this is our activity in brief. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Piotr. It is also an exciting project, and even more because of the support you are giving to your Ukrainian partners, and also with the collaboration of the BCOs there, because as you said, they are struggling to cooperate because they are in a very, very difficult situation. Now we are going to hear about another very interesting project, Into the Sun, very nice title, and it will be presented by Ksenia Martinov from the Moldova Organic Value Chain Alliance. Please, Ksenia, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm glad to see you here in person after so many meetings and projects online. I will tell you just briefly about the results of our projects, what we did, but I will start with a brief description and history of our organization. So Moldova Organic Value Chain Alliance is Moldova Organic Value Chain Alliance, MOVCA, is the first and the largest association in the Republic of Moldova that supports and advocates for organic agriculture. We support local farmers, educate them on organic farming, help them promote their products. We just help them grow. And the main goal of our association is to support all the operators of the value chain, and as well encourage those who are only planning to be active in this sector. Moldova Organic Value Chain Alliance at the moment is the only association in Moldova and the first one who is the member of IFOM Organics International. Our mission is to promote and protect organic agriculture with a unifying voice that serves, engages, and empowers its diverse members from farm to market. And our vision is to grow organic, to achieve excellence in agriculture and commerce, to protect the environment, and to enhance the economic and social well-being of the community. So a bit about MOVCA in numbers. We have 7 years of activity, 50 members, which is about 30% of the whole organic sector. Yeah, we're a very small country, so we have only 150 organic farmers at the moment. We have about 150,000 tons of exported products since the foundation of the association. More than 2,000 users registered on our e-learning platform, which is the first one in Moldova in organic agriculture. And we're very proud of it, of this project. We give farmers the opportunity to learn everything about certification, export, how to grow, how to find your market, how to promote your product, label it. Also, we have 38 publications. We're very heavily focusing on the education of farmers. We have brochures, pocket guides, everything to make your education and your work activity in this sector much easier. And of course, since the foundation, we already have more than 50 successfully implemented projects. One of them is BioFach. At the moment, MOVCA is the only organization from Moldova who participates and represents Moldova at BioFach, world's leading trade fair for organic. We had about 20 exhibitors, 3 exhibitors this year, more than 60 signed contracts, more than 4 million euro profits, and exports to different countries in EU and non-EU like Israel, Canada, and other countries. So Into the Sun project, our goal was to strengthen the bioorganic food sector in Eastern Partnership countries, improving the quality of organic agriculture by bringing farmers and food processors together while also promoting their visibility. We held B2B meetings, participated in a trade fair Expo Cook exhibition in Sicily. We had specialized and customized mentoring services before, during, and after our B2B events. And we also had an online seminar for our farmers with the theme requirements for the production of organic goods and services outside the European Union. The Italian practices in the field of organic food that producers became familiar with during this visit made some of them consider starting new activities for processing organic grains and diversifying markets. I can tell you that we already have some successful examples. Cannot share with them yet, but I hope you'll find these products later on our new e-commerce platform, which will be called BioFood MD, and you'll actually be able to buy these products. And also an agricultural enterprise from the Republic of Moldova started to manufacture, following the example of Georgian farmers, brandy for organic grapes, and initially offer it for tasting to tourists. We have a famous organic market in Moldova. You can also visit it and just taste this brandy, the result of this project. And we have some testimonies of our participants. I will read you. It is necessary to pay more attention to the digitalization of the activities carried out, in particular for greater success in the commercialization of the production. This visit convinced me that I am on the right path, and the assimilation of new practices in the field of organic food industry offers me new opportunities. The location and arrangement of the stands with these products in the Italian markets could be a worthy example to be followed both within the points of trade and at various exhibitions and fairs. As you see, they're very different. This was just one project for producers, very different experience, very different things learned and things implemented. And actually, Moldova Organic Value Chain Alliance participated also in other projects like Plat for Food and Organic Route Croatia, which Carmen mentioned. It was a great project, and we are actually expecting more results this year. And let us continue this beautiful collaboration together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ksenia. Well, we are very happy that you participated in this project, considering that you and your organization are pioneers in the promotion of organic food in your country, and that you also participated here to present your experience, because as Moldova is one of the Eastern Partnership countries, it is very valuable to have you here and also to hear you personally about your experience. Don't go too far, and also for the other projects, because later we would like to make you some questions and to see how you see also the future of this cooperation. And now the fourth project we would like to hear from is supported organic agri-food production and export in Zaporizhia region, Ukraine, and it will be presented again by Luc van Loveren from Boca Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Please, Luc.
So as you can see from the title, we were involved in a twinning project. That means that we had a cooperation with a partner in the Eastern Partnership region, of course. And in our case, we worked together with the Zaporizhia Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Of course, due to the war, we could not finish the project, but I will come back to that a bit later when I will give some more details. First, about my own chamber. So I work for VOCA, the Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Antwerp-Waasland, north of Brussels, for those who were not yet so much in Belgium. We are a private organization, like all the chambers of commerce in Belgium are. We are multi-sectoral. We have currently about 3,000 member companies, a lot of large enterprises, but also a lot of SMEs who are, in many cases, also acting internationally with business to many countries. We help our members by lobbying for their interests, their common interests, of course, to organize networking activities, but also to offer a lot of individual services. Now, why did we find it interesting as a chamber to be involved in a twinning project specifically related to organic food? This morning, I already explained that we follow already for many years the EU's internal market rules for agri-food products, for which we designed already for a lot of years a kind of toolkit, a checklist. And we found it interesting, why not to elaborate further on that and to try to add something similar to help companies to get involved in specifically organic production and trade. That was a little bit something that was going on our mind when discussing some ideas with our partners in Zaporizhia. And we came to an idea to develop a twinning project. And so what did we have in mind? Those of you who were also involved in twinning projects, they will know that one of the KPIs to be realized was to set up at the end of the project a minimum of 2 new services that would be continuously be offered in the organizations that were working in the twinning project. And that's why I come back to what I already said in a few words. We wanted to set up 2 toolkits. That the first one that should help companies to see clearly in how can I get involved in organic production. So this toolkit was, of course, then meant for companies that can be agricultural companies or foodstuff operators that are not yet, let's say, involved in making products in accordance with organic rules, but who are interested, so that in that toolkit, they should find then in a list of steps, a step-by-step approach on how can I go through a transition period to move towards reaching the organic status. Reaching organic status means to get my products then compliant in our project then first with Ukraine's organic rules, and in second phase also in that toolkit should be made clear how to comply with the EU's regulation on organic products, the new one which entered into force beginning of this year, of course, to be up to date. But the second toolkit is then something that we then updated, especially from our chamber. That is a toolkit that goes broader, that looks at all the agri-food products, not only the organic ones, but to give this broad picture on what are all the different rules, even for an organic product. It is important then to understand, do I use a packaging material that has a direct contact with my food? How to label that product. So there are a lot of rules that, of course, apply also to organic products, but which are part of the general acquis communautaire for agri-food products. Together, of course, the idea is then to use the two toolkits to get performant in producing and exporting then organic products by getting guided through such toolkits. Thirdly, we also had the ambition to get for the Zaporizhia region a strategic plan ready for organic production. By the way, the region of Flanders, for which we contacted, of course, experts from our Department of Agriculture, they work every 5 years on a new strategic plan for organic production. So we have also in our own region, in the public institutions, then experience in drafting such organic strategic plan. Now, what did we do? What could we do? We started in August 21. The aim was to finish in August 22, but we had to stop the activities when in February, Russia decided to conquer Ukraine. In the first months, we had very interesting online meetings with sectoral agri-food BSOs, both from Ukrainian side, from Flemish side, whereby we tried to get some feedback already on some drafts, some ideas about these toolkits that we want to develop. And that gave already a lot of insights and interesting suggestions. What we could realize is the drafting of the two toolkits, and also to organize a training of BSOs in Ukraine. That was exactly, I think, if I remember well, on February 9th and 10th this year, whereby the toolkit 2 was presented. Unfortunately, the toolkit 1 should have presented then as well. But besides the war, we also had then the unfortunate accident that our expert from Ukraine, the organic expert, had a car accident, whereby so this made that we could not yet present the toolkit to the BSOs in Ukraine. So what we not could realize due to the war is then the real completion of the toolkit 1 on how to move from traditional, let's say from conventional to organic production and trade, to train the Ukrainian SMEs in using the two toolkits. We could not yet have this drafting of the strategic plan, and also, of course, we could not organize a closing conference in which we could present to a broad audience and media the two new services and the strategic plan. I already showed a little bit in the session of this morning what we could work out in the second toolkit. So this is just a bit repeating, but okay, just to mention it briefly, how we mapped the full legislation on agri-food products in different chapters, with first attention given to the primary products, agriculture and fishery, and then in next chapters we went into the different rules that are related to the processed food or the foodstuffs, with brought in the sub-chapters, technical, labeling, packaging. And here you see then how this is further subdivided in different sub-chapters for a lot of topics in this EU legislation. So besides, of course, these schemes, we have worked out this toolkit in a Word document with, for all these topics, then questions that could be asked to a company. Are you producing frozen products? Are you using GMOs? And by using this toolkit, of course, the idea is that you have then at the end a correct identification of relevant rules that are somewhere in that EU legislation for the products concerned. Yes, you see here the green leaf logo, which is then one of the pieces of legislation in that broad toolkit, but of course, which is then the only voluntary issue within the whole market access rules overview. And this is then for the chapter on packaging, the different areas that we looked at and identified. Now here you see it's a bit small, but this shows you already the first pages of the real checklist that you can use in your hands when you when you coach a company. These are just the titles, and behind these three first pages, the whole list of questions will start with, as I mentioned, after each question, immediately the number or numbers of the relevant EU law, so that after identification, you automatically know which documents to download in the EURLEX database and to analyze further by the company or with your guidance and so on. Now, this slide, I think, is maybe the most interesting from this short overview. This shows you, if you use these toolkits on EU market access rules for example, the product of honey, what kind of topics you can identify as being relevant. In the first chapter, of course, you can see that the apiculture products are part of the Common Market Organization for Agricultural Policies products, but the rules for honey are then worked out in the honey directive, which is then on the second line already in this chapter. Of course, you select all the rules that relate to hygiene, such as the HACCP, the health certificate, which is needed because of product of animal origin. You look at, of course, the food contaminant rules. In this case, there are specific maximum levels for lead. So this is exactly the goal of this checklist, to really help companies not only see clear, is there indeed a rule relevant about food contaminants, but also help to see in that legislation, what does it mean for honey? What kind of figure is relevant? For example, for nuts, as I mentioned this morning, it can be that you then can point to a maximum level of aflatoxins as a kind of contaminant as well. And the same, of course, is to give some guidance about how to look up information in databases of MRLs for pesticides or veterinary medicinal products. And of course, you have done all the other rules that are more general rules about labeling of foodstuffs and the different packaging rules. So this is a little bit how we use this checklist and also help companies to make the best use of it. So this is my short presentation about where we ended, but unfortunately, because the region of Zaporizhzhia is I think about 80% still occupied, we could not ask our colleagues to continue working because they have a lot of other priorities to work on for the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke, for showing us your project. And unfortunately, as you mentioned, your colleagues could not continue this cooperation, but we encourage you to go on supporting them, because this support through this project, in the particular case in which we work, it is surely very important for them, and we will continue to support them also with other action in the future for sure. So I will now invite you, the four projects, to come here, because we would like to make you some questions that could be interesting for us to know some aspect of this cooperation and how you see also the future. So please, Tatiana, Piotr, Ksenia, and Luke, if you could come again here, please. Yes. Thank you. Yes. Well. Thank you for being here again. We'd like to hear from you some particular questions. The first of those questions, what are the most useful aspects of cooperation among the European Union and the Eastern Partnership organizations you consider? Luke, if you want to be the first one.
Well, such a project is always useful to get an insight in what is. Yes, I think such a project gives an enormous insight in what is the economy in the region where you're working with, especially when you can visit the region. And even in February, 2 weeks before the war started, I had a visit to an interesting agri-trade fair before our conference. And then you see that there is a lot of activity ongoing, whether it's about agricultural machinery or products. We went even to visit a dairy farm and to see on the spot how they have a full value chain from the animals till the slaughtery, etc. So this gives you really a picture of what is going on in the region, and that is something that is very inspiring, and to get an idea about with whom you're working with, indeed.
Thank you. For us, from our perspective, there are two main things that are very important. First of all, the very good contacts with our partners, that we so that within business community we can really build really strong networks, and the second thing is the strength of this business community, because despite the situation with war, etc., there are still people who are ready to continue and to support their business even in the worst cases. So these are two main factors for us.
Yes, for us, the most important aspect would be education and innovation that we create, develop in these projects, because I will talk about our example. For our country, the organic sector, for example, is very young, it's not developed, and we always appreciate the fact that we can learn, we can collaborate. We are still far behind. We have a lot of things to develop, to grow, and we are eager to learn, to work with our partners. We are open, and I hope it's mutually beneficial collaboration, and we will continue it.
I could say that the biggest benefit is the trust between the partners, trust between the companies, that we have a good relation from now on, and we will stay behind our companies to go to the new markets.
Thank you, Tatiana. Now, also following some of your answer, how do you plan to continue with this cooperation and with your project stakeholders?
So as I mentioned, the projects that we were working on had to be terminated, but meanwhile, and I hope that we'll get some news in the coming weeks, we try to set up a new project with some support of our Flemish government, focusing on urgent B2B needs in not only the region of Zaporozhye, which we invited already, of course, but also in some other regions. They have shown an interest, whereby we would like to ask our Ukrainian colleagues to select some companies, some sectors in their region of which they believe that there is a concrete, realistic potential for developing business relations with a country such as ours. And we would then, of course, try to reach out to our enterprises and to try to make these matchings successful. We hope to have some, maybe even 5 or 6 Ukrainian regions participating and try to work on such a project for about 2 years. And I think there is certainly a possibility to use a 2 years time frame for a lot of work in such a sphere. So we hope that we can start that work instead of the other project that we had to terminate due to the specific circumstances.
So how are we planning to continue? First of all, we have this final conference on December that we are planning to be the biggest event so far. We are planning to invite communities from Poland, from Italy, and from Ukraine. And after it, because we have collected the business profiles of the companies that are participating in the project, we will encourage them to expand to the EU market, to in Poland, in Italy, etc. So we don't want to limit ourselves only to the scope of the project, but to go and to do something further after this.
Well, when it comes to our project Into the Sun, I think we closed it, but we still get some results from our participants. We had 4 participants, 2 of them developed a new product or services or a service, and the third one is actually planning to start the promotion of their product. Unfortunately, in 2022, it was not possible because of the war, because of all these crisis events. We had to postpone some activities, some projects, and new partnerships are still somewhere in the air. It's not clear what are we going to do, but I hope in 2023 it's going to be more clear. It's going to be easier for us to be more active, participate in more projects, and develop something new and continue with this, maybe with something new for even after the end of the project.
I can confirm the same. We are looking for new opportunities, like new European funding possibilities, exchange of information, supporting the companies with contacts, not only from the area of biofood, but in the other sectors. And we really hope that the challenges will be less than the opportunities.
Thank you. Thank you. During your presentations and also from other interventions, many of you talk about challenges and incidences have occurred during your project implementation. What challenges do you think that you could find in the future to continue the cooperation between your organization and companies?
Well, we were already participating in many projects, not only within the EU for BCC, but also in the predecessors East Invest 1 and 2. And we learned to know already quite a lot of business support organizations in these countries, and we understand already quite well how they work. What are their members, what kind of sectors in that country or that country there could be an interesting match with our region. So that is something where we look at, of course. We know that in some areas in the Eastern Partnership countries, there are maybe more specific agricultural products for which our region is maybe not such a match. So of course, we look at some similarities to try to see that if you have a region who would like to export, for example, steel products. We have some steel traders in, so that could be already an interesting match. So of course, it has to be relevant also. And now I have to defend my own organization for the members of our Chamber of Commerce who are then, of course, or who should be involved as much as we can when we are cooperating, of course, in such a project. So that's something that we always try to have in mind. Can we have a good match as a region, let's say, with the regions where we would like to cooperate with?
So I don't want to talk about the war again, but we have these partners from Ukraine, and we are trying to find partners for them. And what is challenging that right now, because of this situation in Ukraine, yes, many European companies are aware and are afraid if these companies from Ukraine will be able to fulfill their obligations. So what I mean, if they will sign the contract, they are afraid if there will be a chance of delivering the goods for example, they buy from Ukraine, whether they won't be destroyed by some accident during the war. And on the other end, when they are selling something to Ukraine, they are aware if they afraid, you know, of the sustainability of payments, because this situation makes it really difficult, and Ukrainian companies have more often very unexpected costs related to the war, with force majeure and etc. So that's the case.
Well, for us, as I mentioned before, we are a small country, and it's very difficult for us to collaborate with each other for some reason, for our farmers and producers, even though it's the only way we can become competitive on the market and be successful in what we do. This is our internal issue. We didn't find a way to solve this problem yet, but I hope we're going to be successful. When it comes to partnership with other countries, with our partners from EU countries, we've never had any issues. As long as we have a common vision, common clearly defined goals, we are achieving good results, and we really appreciate the support we constantly receive from our neighbors.
Almost all the companies suffer from the COVID-19 and also from the war. So these are the most important obstacles which we have to overcome. And we see that the European Commission does the maximum to minimize those obstacles. And we have to encourage the businesses to go further and to struggle for their development.
Thank you very much for your answers. Now the last question. Do you think that this kind of international cooperation actions between the European Union and European Eastern Partnership entities should continue to be supported? And if so, do you think any suggestion on which type of format this support should take in the future?
I think the last approach was already quite interesting, whereby the business support organizations could try to choose for different types of projects, a twinning project, study visit, or a project focusing on B2B activities. So I think this is already an interesting way. Maybe in the next project, it could be also useful to still integrate some actions that were in the period of East Invest 1 and 2 successful. And I refer to some of the broader trainings that were organized, whereby you could mobilize a lot of BSOs to get familiar with, for example, EU legislation in certain priority sectors or whatever. So maybe that could be interesting to try to take the best of all, let's say, the best of East Invest experience and of the EU for BCC.
So the short answer is yes, of course. But what we could do, I believe there is still a lot of space for some kind of trainings, especially the one that are dedicated to the barriers that companies are and the challenging that companies are meeting when they are trying to expand to the European market. So this is one of the most relevant things. And more B2B actions also would be a good idea, because so far within this project and East Invest, it proved to be probably one of the most successful tools to give people a chance to meet each other and to see their products, their goods, and to cooperate.
Well, from what I heard in the morning from other speakers, we have quite similar problems in EU countries, non-EU countries, and we should focus more on education in general. Yes, of course, education of farmers, like how to produce, how to grow, what to grow, how to set the price, how to promote your product, how to enter the market. But as well, we need to educate the consumer. We have a more complex goal here. if we want our sector to grow, we need to raise the awareness between individuals, to raise a generation that every day makes a conscious choice when they go to the local market, to the shop. I think this is, if we put this together, yes, education, study visits, trainings, and simply marketing, promotion, how simple it is, it's very important for us right now, for our sector.
I would also say benchmarking, and it would be good to give opportunities to the small and very small micro companies to participate at international fairs, as bio-food sector is presented mainly by micro companies, and they don't have the financial opportunities to participate, to pay for travel, for stands, so on. And here I see the role of Euro chambers through the BCOs to support such kind of initiatives, also to exchange maybe managers of such small companies from European countries and Eastern European countries from the Eastern European Partnership, so that they try to share their experience on the real company. That could be a good idea to see how a manager from Eastern Partnership can manage a company in Europe and vice versa.
Thank you very much to you for your experience, and your comments are very valuable for us, and also for thinking into the future, because you have worked on the field, even with all the challenges of this last year. And we are very optimistic about the future, although the present is quite complicated, but your experiences and your work encourage us, and for sure Eurocham as well, to work on to improve and to continue this cooperation in the future. Thank you very much for your comments and opinions. I have taken notes, and we will go for some conclusions in a few seconds. Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, it's very difficult to make conclusions of a conference like this, because we have listened to results of the different projects during this morning, also interesting interventions and approaches about different aspects of the organic food sector in our countries. And we, in the last session, we heard and we listened very carefully to the work developed by some of the successful of the projects that they were developed in this sector under the European EU for Business Conditionality Chambers. And but one conclusion, we were talking about the challenges and about the future. What we consider and what I have extracted from all your intervention is that the European Union and Eastern Partnership business cooperation creates opportunities for our companies and also for the population in our countries and territories. That this cooperation has contributed to increase the knowledge and exchange, which lead to an increase of the economic population of our territories. And that is something that we have shown in the different presentations during today. All our participants, even all the challenges and barriers they have found in implementing this cooperation, especially in these times, are still willing to continue this cooperation in the food sector, and particularly in the bioorganic food sector. And they are already looking for new opportunities with their partners and also with other organizations. However, of course, the companies and the business sector in general, they need security, as some of you expressed during the conference today, and cannot properly work with the uncertainty and what a war like we are having now in Ukraine is provoking. So I take the title of the conference today, Peace for Food, and I would also add Peace for Business, because this could be the terms that may summarize the work we are trying to do in order to improve the lives in our territories. We, and especially the business support organizations that are present here, strongly believe in the cooperation between European Union and the Eastern Partnership countries and its cooperation, and we expect that we will continue working on it, as you have already expressed. And I will give now the floor to Daiva Jonuskien from the CEOLE Chamber of Commerce and Industry to give the some words of this conference. Thank you, Daiva.
Some final remarks, just, we had a very long day, and it is sad, but just a moment ago, we had information that Kiev was attacked again by Russia. So we are really lucky to have opportunity to work like this. And really, big number of people have put their efforts together and made their contribution to make this event happen and to turn it into something like fluent event for content and for networking. So I am really glad it happened, and our big gratitude to Eurochambres who really helped us and supported and made structure of this event, and EU for BCC program, which funded this, and we're also grateful about that. Not only this, all our program. I can't leave this room without gratitude to Civil Chamber, our lead partners of consortia. Helpful at every step of organizing, monitoring this event. So I am always glad to be your partner and to be monitored by you and coordinated. And of course, technicians really made broadcasting successful, and thank you for your professional work. And all of you here who are in presence were so patient to work all day long, and online participants who were patient even more, because to sit online is challenging. But what to do? It is the situation. So the end of day and all our wishes for further fruitful cooperations and more opportunities to be here, not to be here, to work together and bring value to our countries, European Union and Eastern Partnership. Thank you.